Welcome back to the Wild Holy podcast. I'm Faith, and today it's just Stephanie and me. Instead of having a formal interview and no particular topic to dive into, we wanted to create a little bit of space to check in with each other. So much of navigating the terrain of the Wild Holy is about noticing the unexpected, noticing what's beneath the surface, noticing what feels alive, strange, disruptive, or beautiful. So this episode is going to be more conversational while Stephanie and I check in with one another about what we're noticing in our own lives. We also wanted to invite you, dear listener, as you're here with us, to check in with yourself and hold the same question with us. Where is the Wild Holy showing up for me right now? And with that little bit of introduction, Stephanie, what have you been noticing since we were last together?
Yeah, well, Faith, it's good to be back together. Good to be back in this space, and it's been a while. So I'm so grateful to be back here. What have I been noticing? So I just returned from a retreat. This past weekend, I was in the Hudson River Valley in upstate New York on a retreat, and it was delightful just to be in quiet. We'll get to that in a bit, but it was so lovely to be in a beautiful place. I spent a full 20 to 30 minutes just watching like bees buzz around in this pollinator garden. And so it's just about slowing down for me, which I work in a college setting. So summers are like one, usually, hopefully, best case scenarios, you're usually like one big deep breath. And so that's what I took. So I'm feeling really refreshed from that retreat. And so I can say more about that in a minute. But um, so the Wild Holy, I think, has been for me coming up in refreshment and slowing down. I'm also obsessed. It's strawberry season.
Huh.
And uh, if you've ever had strawberries from a farm stand, or, something a little bit more local, they taste incredible. So,
Yeah.
I got a crate of strawberries when I came back from my retreat, yesterday, and I've been trying to figure out I probably should give some of them away because there's so many of them, but trying to figure out how to best use them because I don't think I'll be able to eat them all before
You got
they
a lot of them then.
they only came in one size. So, I'm gonna have to figure out, maybe I can give some to you to Faith, but
Sure.
so
You
wild
should see
holy,
my boys try to eat the berries. Anything berries is
they're
gone within
obsessed
seconds
with.
of being home.
Okay, so I know exactly what to do with the leftover berries. So, I just have been finding the wild holy in in nature. I mean, in our natural world, stepping away from screens, just seeing the abundance that's all around us all the time, even in difficult, climate sorts of moments, because
Mhm.
we're in a climate crisis. So that's where I've been seeing the wild holy. Strawberries.
Strawberries,
Mhm.
yeah, that's great. Oh, yeah. Well, where do you sense the wild holy meeting you in this particular season in your life?
I got to read a really amazing book. I think I devoured it in a few hours. It was over this weekend at the retreat center. The retreat center is a monastery, an Episcopal monastery, and they had a library. And I happened to find a book by our old friend of the show, Cynthia Bourgeot,
Mhm.
called The Mystical. I really should have looked this up. Something about mystical hope. And then there was a colon, and it had another title.
That's not a book that I'm familiar with by her, so interesting,
Me
cool.
either, Faith.
She's written so much
She's
that
written
yeah.
so much, yeah. And I had never even heard of it. It's from 20, maybe over 20 years ago. So maybe
Wow.
it's not in the last sort of like section of her canon.
Hmm.
Um, but it's a really lovely book. And so it talks about she's trying to sort of define or evoke, I suppose, what kind of hope is cultivated through meditative practices and awareness. And she talks about it, mystical hope, or it's also biblical hope, is beyond having certain conditions met. So hope in this case is internal, it's not dependent on external circumstances, which is really profound. And it helped me articulate, I think, some of the gifts that I've felt I've received over the last X number of years that I've practiced centering prayer and things like that. That there's just been this evolving sense of hope that doesn't feel isn't c isn't contr isn't dependent on certain things being met that I expect.
Mhm.
And so there's a wildness to that in that I'm not controlling it, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of people want of course, we want certain things to happen. We want them to happen when we want them to happen. And she's just talking about something like a spiritual quality or disposition that is cultivated in us that is much deeper than that. And I think that is wild because it's outside of our control in some ways. Like it's happening in us, within us, with some intention, maybe, maybe, but it's happening through the slow work of God, really.
Mhm.
And to me, that feels wild because anything that's not in our control feels wild to me and
Well,
worthy of cultivation, you know?
yeah, well, and also I think in that, it might be out of our control, but also there's sort of this element of trust that there is a goodness and an overall plan emerging through what's coming your way. And that's why I feel like the word wild evokes that, in that if you look outside at nature, it's not the tree isn't trying to grow necessarily, but it's just following its beingness and watching what comes up with nature, and that the needs will be met. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I think that is really much very what you said, the word of trust is very much what she's trying to get at. And I like that you connected it to the wildness and to beingness because I think there's a lot in our world right now that is feeling wild in not a good sense. Wild in like the sense of like
Mhm.
watching a train barreling towards another train. Um,
Mhm.
and that feels out of control in a really scary way. Whereas I think the mystical hope or the hope that's kind of cultivated by some of these spiritual practices is not certainty. It's not saying everything's going to be okay even. It's just a deep sense of trust and faith. Yeah.
Well, I wonder, what would you say, um, how does one approach, so it's one thing to approach that in one's own life. I mean, that's all we really have control of. How does one interact with a world that does not honor that kind of perception of the goodness of the other, the trust that there's an element of control that's always engaged? Um, what would you say to that person who is like, "Well, that's great for me, but how do I fix the world around me, or how do I still deal with that world that's very controlling and not wild around me?" Wild in a not so good kind of way.
Yeah. In the train crash way. Or
Yeah.
my hair today, I was just like, it's just doing whatever it wants. It wants to be wild and free.
Wild.
I think so. I mean, part of what I understand the purpose of this podcast is to do, or one of the ways that we want to see if it grows in this direction, is to see if there's other people, right? See if there's a community that wants to form and gather in these spaces. Because I don't think we can do it by ourselves, nor are we meant to. I think it's finding
Find the others.
find the others, yeah, like,
Yeah.
find the wild, holy folks who are maybe inside of institutions, like, for formalized religious institutions, maybe not. I think that's what it's about. I don't think we can do any of this by ourselves. I think we need each other for the journey.
That's a good point.
I mean, it's why you and I are talking too. It's not either one of us could be here just opining.
Mhm.
And instead we built this as a conversation.
Right. Knowing that each of us brings our own gifts
Mhm.
and challenges to the mix and
Mhm.
experiences and all the things.
Mhm.
And it's kind of in that intertwining of others meeting together that something really beautiful, a new thing emerges, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, speaking of the tree, there's not just one tree. The more we even know about trees, the more we see that they're deeply connected in relationship with each other. There's an ecosystem. And I think there's no way that we're getting out of our various crises without
No.
without people of good faith, good intention coming together. There's that's what it is. I think a lot of us maybe are waiting for, miracles, but often the miracles are found in community.
I'm just had this thought, if it's okay if I share,
I want
but
you to.
there's I'm thinking of the different ways that I've seen people of faith deal with um, troublesome a troublesome world, put it that way. So in my more conservative, kind of fundamentalist religious upbringing, it was being kind of based in fear, a fear of what that of course, the world is scary. There's going to be fear, but then the motivation was fearful in the response to that. So it was separation from the world. That's how they dealt with it. Was pulling away from the world, not engaging with the world, pulling away, and also controlling one's own environment. Again, like shoring up the boundaries and the barriers between us and other. Um, and I find that in this approach and season that I feel called to in the moment, it's um it's a having to trust that there is an ultimate good in place. And it's a lowering of the barriers that needs to happen, as scary and as unnerving as that might be. And that's really the only choice, is to be vulnerable to one another.
I think both of those needs, both the need to have some measure of security and protection and the need to lower boundaries and enter into intentional community. I think both of those needs are valid. I think what you're pointing to also, Faith, is that you have perceived within yourself, it sounds like, some, desire to move away from the fearfully motivated community that wanted to circle the wagons and protect at all costs, perhaps a vision of the world that deeply rooted in a sense of threat, and to move into a more spacious, generous, and loving universe where, yes, threats exist, and bad things happen, but there's there's also good. Like, the world is fundamentally good, and many people are kind and good intent and well intentioned.
Yeah.
And I think you and I have talked about this before. I feel like I grew up in a less extreme version of that, but still, um, there was a lot of there the the impetus to control was taken for granted. Control women's bodies,
Mm,
control be just controlled in your behaviors. And of course
yeah.
it fell unfairly on women, I think,
Hmm.
um, to both self-enforce and in some ways to enforce upon others. And I remember, leaving home for the first time, really, going to college at 18. And it was like the door opened. I thought, oh, the world is so much bigger and so much better than I had been led to believe it was.
I know. I feel like that was my experience too. It's like, oh,
Uh,
this world isn't so scary and evil after all. There's a lot of beauty here.
so much beauty.
Yeah.
And I mean, I also think I know the word gets overused. I think it's the word gets overused. It doesn't get overused. I think we're just coming to terms with it collectively that probably that there were people went through a lot of trauma. And so of course I mean, that's in your family background, it's in mine, it's in most people's, I think. Like, life's been tough. And so I understand why people had the responses they did, but control in the way that things were controlled is not loving.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that sounds like you're sensing the holy meeting you through the seasonal appearance of strawberries. Some beautiful quiet at a retreat center and a good book
Yes. Yes. Yes.
and by a wonderful theologian.
Yes. Friend of the show. Yes.
Um, yeah, and
Mhm.
finding that inner peace as opposed to looking for that peace outward. Did I capture that right or
Yes, you
adjust
did.
it if
You
I'm
did,
wrong?
Faith.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, then I wanted to ask you another question, a question I had for you
Yeah.
because you do a lot of facilitating of quiet spiritual spaces in your career and your life. And so you will have a gift of creating these spaces that feel gentle and welcoming and just really quietly powerful. So um, I'm wondering, as you've experienced that, what what have you learned about the power of quiet within the world that rewards like this urgency and noise and needing to be responded to in the moment and going from checklist here, A, B, C, D, all in order.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, quiet is a privilege. Or quiet's becoming a luxury. Um, so I don't hold quiet as the only atmosphere in which spiritual community can happen, or spiritual experience can happen. All that being said, because
Hmm.
uh, you know, I feel like there's a lot of different cultures and specifically sort of non-white cultures that have different ways of accessing the divine collectively. So I just wanted to say that too.
Sure, that's a good point. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I think for a lot of people, so quiet to me, I think we live in an atmosphere, a lot of us live in an atmosphere of overload in terms of schedules, in terms of demands of like family life and work life. And all these systems around us are creating so much pressure to not just be quiet, but to have a moment of self-reflection. So to me, the way I've kind of instinctually create groups of quiet or moments of quiet has been so that sound can come forth that's more truthful. That is like there's the chatter of our minds and the chatter that we're kind of surrounded with. And so part of what I feel quiet does, or at least what I'm trying to do with it, is I'm trying to quiet the chattery parts
Mhm.
so that deeper truths can emerge, really. And
Okay.
I was involved in a this isn't even at the college where I'm serving, but there was group, we have like a week, slightly less than a week, um, learning workshop. Various people at the college put on workshops, and I did one with a colleague, and it was called Common Ground, and there were like 40, no, there were 50 people who signed up for it. It was really incredible, and I think
Yeah,
both
that is
of us.
great.
Yeah,
It sounds like it's a desire of people to find common grounds.
I think so. I think people are hungry for, I mean, this is my theory, but I think people are hungry for connection to themselves and others, and they want they wanna be part of something that feels like it's moving forward out of the morass.
Mhm.
Because, it so happened on the same morning that the US president was just, you know, quarter of a mile away, uh, at a graduation ceremony, so we were all aware of that, and I jokingly, but half jokingly said, "This is our protest. This is our alternate form of, political expression," which is like there are other ways to be together other than dominant through domination. Anyway, that's a long way of saying that in kind of introducing some quieter practices, introducing some going within practices as well as like connecting with others. I mean, it did sort of feel like a mini revival. Like people were crying, they were laughing. It just was this like bubbling
That's
of,
unusual for a
I
workplace.
know,
Yeah.
I know. I think, and also at the same time, I was so in awe of people who I think there's just some deep human needs to be in community in ways that are so powerful. And it was amazing to, I mean, this was like 2 hours, just 2 hours. And it was amazing at the end to kinda go around to just, like, gently ask, like, "What are you taking from this?" Or, "What's bubbling up for you?" And one woman was like, "I'm going on vacation. I'm taking myself on vacation." I was like, "That's great." Like, it was, like, very much like a going on a going on a sexy vacation. It's like, "You do that." Like,
Wow.
do it. And there were other responses too, and someone was talking about, like, she's so looking forward to a granddaughter being born, and also her own mother just died, and just leaving space for all of this stuff. So, what does quiet contribute to that? Quiet is, in a way, kind of means to an end, I think. It's there to it's there to see if there's, um, more truth, or it's there to see if something wants to emerge that maybe other conditions don't allow for as easily. Mhm.
Well, just going back to the very start of you answering that question, I'm still like, now I'm pondering this. What is the difference? But quiet is not the only way into the sacred, into noticing. It's a tool that can be used, but it's not an exclusive tool. So that's something I'm gonna have to be thinking about now. It's like what are the similarities between other ways of entering into sacred space through different cultures that I'm not necessarily familiar with.
Well, I wanna mention the dearly departed Barbara Holmes, who, passed.
Mm.
I'm losing all track of time, but she passed
Within
about
the
a couple
past
years.
year, I
Yeah, I
think.
think
Yeah.
so. It feels like that. But she did a lot of work around kind of African and then African American mysticism, and around, a lot of the practices that were somehow still cultivated in slavery in the South for a couple 100 years. And so, I just think, but even that, it's like a lot of they're so deeply communal. And
Yeah.
that's what I find really important about quiet. Like, certainly people can and do practice quiet at home, you know, if you live by yourself, or even if you don't, you can practice quiet. But I find quiet particularly powerful in groups. because
Interesting.
yeah, because there's I think we all get sort of socialized to, and I love this too, but like kind of chitter chatter and talk at one level with each other. And then when you introduce quiet, there's just a I don't know, something else emerges.
Well, it sounds like this, the theme here is noticing,
Mhm.
and that quiet can be one of those ways of gathering that space in order to notice
Mhm.
what's
Definitely.
going on.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
think noticing and then being able to hold it in some ways,
Mm.
have it be held.
Mhm. Have it be held by others and self, or
Yeah,
yeah.
I think so.
Well, what do you think? I've got my last question for you is, what do you wish that more people understood about sensitivity, intuition, or spiritual openness as forms of strength, not necessarily fragility?
One of one of my college majors was sociology, so I'm gonna give a political or sociological answer to this question. I think I think intuition and spiritual openness and sensitivity have been coded as feminine and therefore weaker by patriarchy. I just wanna say that. And
Mhm.
so I think part of the work maybe of individual people who want to explore those traits within themselves is to realize if there is any resistance to them, to wonder if there's been some negative labeling that really isn't coming from that is coming from these authority structures
Mhm.
that are deeply threatened by and should be by by people tapping into, shall we say, other ways of knowing that are not derived from external sources. And so part of the learning or part of the acceptance is about unlearning or questioning maybe, or and both, both those things,
Mhm.
questioning why do those negative ideas exist in the first place? Where do they come from? So that's one layer of it, which I think has been important for me. Like part of my family history is and I know we got to interview my cousin, uh, from my mom's side of the family. There's an interesting paradox in that side of the family because on the one hand, there's a lot of people with sort of who belong to and adhere to kind of conventional, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all necessarily, conventional religiosity. But there's also an undercurrent in that family stream of witchiness? I don't know what else to say, like, a psychicness, sensitivity, spiritual openness, call it what you will. Um, and I and that goes back some generations. That's been the family, it's not just lore, like, I've been grateful to know, my great-grandmother, and so something's there. Something's there,
Yeah.
Faith. And so I understand that, again, as we are living through whatever this moment is, and more people, I think especially women, I'd love to see more men, like, join the movement, um, but more people are questioning external authority structures. I mean, some are still fleeing to them, which, okay, is another path, but I just think it's an interesting era, and I understand, given our social context and history, why a lot of people would be scared of that. That being said, I also think that I sort of do think, like, do not quench the spirit, but test everything. I think spiritual openness and intuition, they are also art forms and they are also ways of knowing. And they I just want them to be part of the conversation. I don't think you have to,
Mm,
like, throw out science. Throw
right,
out
right,
other
right.
things. Like, bring it all into the conversation. I just think those I don't think I would ever argue that you have to trust your intuition over logic. I think we need we need all of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that you have a good point, and it's also good to notice where the origin of of these things come from. So sensitivity, intuition, spiritual openness, that's like an internally generated knowing or authority. Whereas, institutional religions or science or those are external ways of knowing, which can be validated and very helpful. So they're both needed. You can't throw either one of them out. There's just been this overemphasis on the external authority and, particularly scientific thinking. Again, much needed, but again, just like it's too weighted towards that end, and there needs to be more of a balance. But I was wanted to also note that you were saying that you come from a family lineage of women who are seem to be in tune with this very this sensitivity and intuition and a bit of witchiness. But I also noticed that those being feminine qualities does not mean that they have been weak women. In fact, you would probably characterize them as being very strong women in your family. Is that correct? Or
I have complicated feelings about that.
okay,
But, I don't think
it's
that
more nuanced than
yeah, I
that.
don't think that I don't think that that aspect of them is a weakness at all. I think it is a strength. And I think, my quibbles are with them are not don't have to do with those things or, that there's different wounding there. So I think but at the same time, I think part of what I think is exciting about living in this era, and particularly because I work with young people, like, you know, a lot of them are exploring their witchiness. A lot of them are, they're going in a lot of different directions at once. What I find exciting is that some of that stuff is coming out of the closet.
Hmm,
And, you know, when my aunt had an angelic experience, and I remember her
uh-huh,
telling the family about it in, the 90s or whatever it was. It was something you kinda like, it was like, it's for the family. And maybe she did and would have told others, but it was very much, you know, kinda kept amongst the family. And so I think, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm here is the Wild Holy is just like the holy is a lot bigger than we think it is.
mhm,
And I don't think we have to throw any babies out with the bathwater
mhm,
necessarily. I mean, collectively. I think individual people can go where they feel they need to go. But yeah, I think intuition is strength. I really do think that's true. And trusting your intuition is a skillful practice
mhm,
as well. And I think it doesn't mean you've got like 100% accuracy or that you know, you get everything right all the time. It's not about being right. It's about tuning in, not just to yourself, but to the currents that you see around you. And especially, for my work or just who I am in the world, like I'm really interested in tuning into currents. I'm
mhm,
interested in tuning into what people are saying to me. I'm interested in tuning into where the holy might be in someone's life or in the world. So all that stuff is a skillful practice. So that's me.
yeah,
That's enough.
that's very good.
Yeah, it's the usual amount of randomness, but what
That's
else?
okay,
What else
yeah.
can we do? What else can I do? So, Faith, that's thank you for asking deep questions. And now I'm going to ask you, um, what's life been like for you? Just generally, just a little check in.
Hmm. Well, I've been finishing up. I finished up my semester, my second year at divinity school. So that was challenging for me. I think I've hit the time at school where it's the freshness of it is worn off. The excitement of it is worn off. And it's just, kind of like we're doing it. It's still interesting. Still, I still enjoy it, but there's a bit of burnout. It's a lot, doing that plus home stuff. Taking care of two kids and making sure all the things are taken care of here as well. So, and the travel too, 'cause I have to travel an hour each way to go to school. So, um, it was a lot. And, yeah. So I think I'm grateful at this moment to just be back home, being able to catch up on all the things that kind of I let slide for a while. Necessarily deep cleaning the boys' rooms, and boys are gross sometimes, although I have to say it's no different than my sisters and I growing up. So the same kind of messiness. So I guess I can't really peg it on boys. But yeah, it's feels good to kind of get out from underneath all of the clutter. So yeah.
I love that, Faith. I love that for you and for them.
Mm,
Having, it sounds like in a similar vein, like having some summer vibes and summer cleaning vibes or
yeah.
decluttering vibes.
It doesn't sound exciting, but it's actually been really feels really good.
Well, no, I was
So
actually there's something that can be really healing about getting rid of clutter and not getting rid of it, but just like releasing some of it. And
yeah.
I don't know if you find your brain a little bit lighter. Or just
Mm,
yeah, just helps to rearrange some
mhm.
things. So
Yeah.
that being said, Faith, the wild holy in your life or in your awareness, where's the wild
Hmm.
holy been for you or is now?
Yeah. Well, I think it it's interesting. I've had this kind of shift recently. I don't know if it's gonna be temporary or permanent, but like my key spiritual practice has always been to journal, early morning journaling. And and it's just been a way for me to have a conversation with God or my higher self and talk through life, inner feelings, life in general. It mostly has to do with more inner stuff, just a way for me to get through that inner, turmoil or feelings. And I just haven't felt like doing it. Every morning I get up, I'm like, yeah, I'll sit with my blank page and I'll doodle a little bit and try to be open to what might come. But I don't know. For the time being, it's just like I'm good. And have thought about what that might mean. If it means um, maybe it's just a quiet moment for me and my higher self at the moment. Maybe it's a indication of deeper integration between my higher self and myself, and not that, and that I don't necessarily need all of that time to try to integrate everything. That maybe I'm hoping that that's partly the case. That I'm moving from that space of um, deeper inner knowing instead of having to access it, work so hard to create space to access it. So it's just interesting. I'm kind of noticing where that's going. Um, and yeah, so that's that. And I guess I'm also experiencing just, I'm appreciating the holiness of the ordinary everyday life. And I've really appreciated being home a lot and just moving through being able to give more space to preparing meals for my family or washing the dishes or getting, all this getting caught up on all the things. It's been feeling very um just comforting for the moment. I mean, it's going to get old quick. I know how this goes. I've been through this. But for the moment, that's where I'm really finding an appreciation and my soul is being fed and being renewed. And so I'm just appreciative of that right now. Yeah.
So much of what you just said was so profound, Faith, and I love that you
Yeah.
this will get old too, but for now, like, the being grounded at home and having some of those rituals, and I especially like what you said about, I mean, not having to work as hard to access the inner divine, higher self that you mentioned. That's really profound, and I wonder if I'm thinking about, because maybe I've been a version of this where I think I this is a product of my not a product of my nature, I think it's a product of upbringing, where I think, like, no, if you commit to a spiritual practice, you do it until the day you die.
Yep.
It's a very rigid,
Uh-huh.
masculine? I don't know what it is, but it's so I
It's
wonder if
akin to going to church every Sunday and reading your
yeah, like
Bible every day and
and not, like,
yeah.
not letting yourself it's not so I guess I'm wondering how you distinguish it seems like from what I know from your background, that there was a kind of rigidity to a lot of things,
Mhm.
that was enforced and believed in. So how have you navigated, like, "Okay, I'm not really feeling like I need to do this." And because 'cause you've just sort of, like, talking about, like, something's evolved.
Right.
It's not just
Right.
changed, it's, like, evolved. How do you space
Right.
for that? Just thinking about people who
Yeah.
have, like, feel like failures or according to other systems or other ways that they're raised
Yeah.
even. Like, you must do
Well,
this and be structured.
right. Well, I think that there's a time and a place for every sort of like energy to enter into, and there's a time for that rigidity and like discipline. And there's a time for um just a letting go a bit and being like, nope, that's okay. I'm going to go with something a little softer, a little bit less intense, and just honor what I want in the moment or what feels good and um, nurturing. So, and I just find that m- the first half of my life was so based within the rigid and um, feeling like performative, like I have to do this, and a pushing, kind of a pushing towards things that I feel like the growing edge for me is to relax that. And I have to always deal with the inner voice in me that's saying, that's lazy, that's not good enough, that's whatever. And then there's still time and then there's times where I'm like, okay, I've gone a little too far on the other side. I need to kind of buckle in and do what needs to be done. So yeah, it's navigating that is is interesting, and I think that's another important step in just knowing that inner space. Like, what do I need? It's not going to be the same for every person. Every person is not at the same spot in life, doesn't have the same characteristics, same qualities, same backgrounds. It's going to be a different set of, not to be prescriptive, but set of things to do for than another person. So, yeah.
No, that's really profound faith and feels like I feel like there's some threads here of, like, how to recover, recovery from kind of rigid structures and overly rigid and beautiful that you're kind of, like, navigating, like, this flow. Can I just mention something from the retreat that
Yeah.
so I was at this Episcopal monastery, so a community of men, and I don't know, there are definitely gifts of the Episcopal tradition that I really appreciate. and there were freaking crucifixes everywhere, and I was, like, feeling slightly
Yeah.
feeling slightly, like, overwhelmed by, like, every corner you turn, there's a crucifix, and it's a Benedictine, they follow kind of a Benedictine rule of life, and so the Psalms, they chant the Psalms beautifully, chant the Psalms, 5 times a day, and I just had this moment of and there's, the God language is all masculine, and that's not necessarily representative of the entirety of even this, community's theological orientation. I mean, you go into the bookstore and look, there's queer theology over here and disabled, theologians and their books over there. And you're like, okay, but like
Yeah.
in the actual liturgy, there's so much. And the Psalms are wonderful and just they're so whiny. And I think about the Psalms as it should be it's like one example. It's like it's a genre, right? And I found
Mhm.
myself craving more voices.
Mm.
And I thought, to each their own. And it was a moment similar to yours where I thought, I get to appreciate this for what it is. I get to benefit from this community structure and their discipline.
Mhm.
And also like really have clarity about the things that I don't need.
Mhm.
And I get to be grateful that, what I ended up thinking too is total speculation. But I ended up, as someone who has kind of a mother wound myself, I was like, I just felt this father wound in this
Hmm.
community. And I've just really appreciated that maybe that's being healed for them. I hope that's true.
Mhm.
And also, I don't need that. So anyway,
Mhm.
a longer story
Yeah.
than I meant to tell, and I didn't mean to, you know, hop onto what you're saying too much, but
No.
I think the wisdom of navigating your own spiritual life in a way that puts you in the driver's seat, in a sense, or as centers you in a way that so many of these other traditions, I think understandably for some reason, somewhat of a self-corrective, want people to be mindful at their best about that, but still, it's a feminist thing you just said. I
Hmm.
want to raise the flag.
Yeah. It was making me, think about this, gentleman that I did a paper on. His name is Lex Hickson. He was a spiritual leader in the 70s, 80s.
It's a great name.
Um, yeah, right? And he did a lot of early work on, um, not just ecumenicalism within Christianity, but, like, interfaith work. Like, how do you approach working together with other faith traditions that hold to other different sacred truths? There's differences. Um, how do you do that? How do you work with those while still remaining faithful to your own? Can you do that? And, of course, he was like, absolutely. In fact, he was a practitioner of like 3 different faith traditions. And what he would say is that, he doesn't need to give up. Like, he was an Episcopal priest. He didn't need to give that up in order to also become, an Islamic something, or I can't remember what he was, his title was. Um, and I can't remember all the other faith traditions that he kind of held to, but it was just interesting, and he just had a really neat way of then having these radio interviews with people from different faith traditions, and just showing how that interfaith dynamic works, about how you can hold to your own beliefs and what's healing and working for you, um, and also honor that the paths of others at the same time. Anyways, that's kind of a long way to get through, but it was making me think of this gentleman's journey. So it was interesting anyways
Yeah.
to write a paper and kind of look through his stuff.
Yeah. Kind
Yeah.
of seems like a I don't know anything about it beyond what you've said, but just a pioneer of
Mm.
interspirituality and that
Yes.
movement, if it's a movement or a school, which is important. I think a lot of people are looking for ways to be interspiritual with integrity. You know, they don't want to colonize. They would be a spiritual colonizer of especially indigenous traditions or in traditions from people of color, but also feel within themselves and appreciate the and vibrate, to other traditions that
Mhm.
deeply resonate with them. So that feels really important. And speaking of seminary, speaking of divinity school, Faye, so as you mentioned, you're coming around the bend
Mhm. Yeah.
of the final journey.
Yeah.
As
2
you
more classes.
literally 2 more classes, which is deeply exciting. I'm just wondering how your experience relates to your experience at this point in the journey, where you thought you would be at this point in your journey. Are you where you thought you should be?
Mm.
Are you somewhere different? How have your goals and
Yeah.
expectations for the institution or for just what you thought you would receive from the program? Where are you in that journey?
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of another frustration of this semester was just kind of seeing a disconnect between what I was expecting going in and where I was arriving. And so when I started, I was considering whether or not I wanted to be an ordained minister, priest within the Episcopal Church. Um, was wondering if it could be a place where I could practice, keep my Christian language, but yet in a more expansive, more soft way that felt better. But as I started to navigate that whole process, which is quite in depth, there's a lot of red tape and processes to go through, which is, of course, great for securing the fact, making sure that those who reach that stage are, qualified and fit for the task. But as I entered into that, I was just like, I hit this like feeling of like no every step of the way, just like no, I don't know, I don't want this, I don't want this. And it was just such a confusing, conflicting feeling because I was enjoying all of the coursework and the thinking around these theological ideas and then I thought, well, maybe I would pursue a PhD. And that road just was not coming together for me. And it wasn't a matter of me saying no, it was just a matter of it not lining up. Like it just yeah, so it made me go, well, this is interesting. And through the work of like I just realized in one of my classes I was taking a class on the medieval women mystics and with each paper that I had to write, I had a total of 6 short papers to write. And these are beautiful writings that I was encountering, really interesting women that were having a voice in a time when they weren't typically given a voice. And yet, with every reading, the thing that would come up to me, and again, this like feeling of like, oh, like a cringing, like embodied, just like repulsive feeling of against every time I would see, I mean, I was noticing where these women's voices were tampered down, were limited by a certain Christian language because they were describing their mystical encounters. They had, you know, most likely, some of them I wonder if they kind of created them in order to gain authority because it would seem to be the only way that women could really gain a voice and authority within that culture was to be a voice of God and take that on. But anyways, so I would see and cringe at the way that their voices were shaped by religion shaped by their male scribes, shaped by theology and doctrine. And that really upset me. And then also the way that there was just always those external authorities that were influencing that. So that's what all my papers kept on going to. And my professors were so kind and wonderful in saying, yeah, that's true. But also look at the way they were able to find a voice within a system that didn't normally. So there was a lot of beautiful things to be seen, but I was not able to see them. And so my final paper was a lot of work on just realizing that when I think just realizing a trauma kind of background of things that I experienced in my my early formative years with a fundamentalist religion and women's voices being silenced or tamped down, that was what was coming out in my experience of those mystical writers, when there is also a lot of beautiful things. So, a long way to say that now I'm sitting at a spot wondering, I don't know that really a position within an institutional church is one that's going to be beneficial for me. And it's not to say that, I mean, every person that I've met at the divinity school, they're beautiful people. I love what they're doing and, their heart for people and the church. But I don't think it's for me and I don't think it's I've always thought that maybe it was my job to take on and fix the church in some way, make it more softer for people. um, it- and I just am convinced now, I think that it's not my job. Someone who's been harmed by that does not need to take on the fixing of the problem. That maybe my best healing spot is to be outside of it. Not that I don't support it in some ways, um, and not that I don't, appreciate it from an outside, but I'm not thinking that the internally is going to be the best place for me. And so dealing with that.
What comes up that's really profound? I feel like I've said that a million times. It's profound. What does dealing with it mean? What does it look like for you? Is that grief? What does that involve?
I think it's more acceptance. Yeah. It's kind of just like that feels phew, like I can let that go.
The
So
mission
I
of
think it's
that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think there was a little bit of grief there too, a little bit of sadness, but yeah, mostly just like a relief. So, yeah, interesting.
That's I think this is such an example of the wild Holly in the way that we go into these things, I don't know, almost testing out a hypothesis or with particular goals and expectations. And then the process in some ways does what it is there to do. Like it's like it or not, divinity schools and seminaries are gatekeeping, right? And so they're doing that. They're sort of like testing the metal of those two and the worthiness in some ways in or standards, whatever. And so it's profound to me that you've discovered it's been an opening to these, in some ways, your place within this universe of the wild holy, and it's not there. I mean, it's not literally there because you're gonna be, but it's not in as a priest or a pastor in the Episcopal tradition or anything else. It's a more interesting and a wilder place than yeah.
You want to hear what I've resonated with as far as a term for
Yes,
myself
please,
recently?
Faith, yes. Tell me.
A hedge walker.
Ooh,
So
okay, say more.
it's a person that walks between the city and the wild forest.
Ooh. Where
And
does
I
that come from?
feel,
Where does that come from, Hedgewalker?
well, I think it comes from like some people will define themselves as a hedge witch or the wise woman or the wise man who lives outside of the city that people go to for herbal remedies or something. Um, it also could be from like an unlearned preacher that preaches from the hedgerow, kind of not officially within the church. So um, I feel a resonance with that because I do feel like I go back and forth between the organized and the wild. And that feels really good to me. I like that because I do appreciate the organized religion and am so fascinated by all the ways and techniques that people have come with up with to engage with the holy, but also I just realize that it gets conflated with the holy. Those structures become conflated with it often, and so I want to go back to the original wild, which I think is a lot to take on, so I need to go back and forth.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. I
But
love the
I tend to just straddle the line between a lot of different things. That seems to be like my I'm neither in nor out, and that's just kind of the way that I am. I don't know.
I like the Hedgewalker as a metaphor.
Yeah.
'Cause I think there's a freedom in that, you know, there's a I mean, maybe that's what is being called for at this time is not people who or more people who can traverse different aspects of our lives, and I'm struck by, like, the kind of hermit, like the wise woman medicine healer hermit in the woods that people go to, and that, like, really resonates with what I know about you, Faith, that there's a strong witch inside, and an herbalist and a healer. Um
Oh, speaking of that, wanna guys share my flowers with you?
Yes, please. Oh, those are beautiful. What kind of flowers
I've
are
got
those?
some lavender and some sage
Oh,
flowers. So, yeah, they're sitting over here helping me. They're my accompanying guides.
I love it so much, good Faith. I mean, I love all your witchy things, and I mean that in the most positive sense because I think I know there's been such so many people felt drawn to different aspects of witchcraft and, um, and want to embody a relationship with the natural world that is more wholesome and less exploitative, you know,
Yeah.
so I just really value that. And I it almost I do wanna ask this question, and then we'll kinda go into a guided meditation.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm wondering, Faith, that, you know, as you mentioned, there's like this the place you're finding in the world right now is the hedge walker. And I'm wondering to what extent do you think some of these institutionalized forms of spirituality and religion, how how does the wild holy can the wild holy I know there's a bit of a contradiction in terms, but just wondering if you think the wild holy can be cultivated in that space, or is there fundamental conflict of interest, shall we say?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really tricky thing. It's like living on a knife's edge, I think is where you need to be within those institutional forms of religion if you want to leave space for the wild holy. And that's the hard thing about them is that the nature of things so if you look at experience, if I'm going to convey that experience to you, it necessitates words. It necessitates ideas and concepts, but those are not my experience. In the same way, religion is not the experience of the divine and the holy, but we need it in order to convey. what that is or talk about it or notice it. So both it's needed. The problem comes in the conflation of one for the other. So if you start to think that these laws and this holy book and this church or this whatever institution is the only place that God can come or is God, you or start to treat it like God, you have to even be careful. Like you might say one thing, but you're actually treating it as God, even though you're saying it's not God. When you guard holy books and holy traditions with such ferocity that you're willing to kill another for it, and that make you question whether it's become too rigid. So I think the key is to keeping it soft and porous and open for change. Because then the holy can emerge and show up in new ways and new times and new places with new people. Otherwise, you're like forcing and controlling this rigid idea, concept, or tool on top of of something that needs freedom to be expressed. So that's the challenge, and I think that the concept of rewilding sometimes can be useful in thinking about how we keep churches soft and pliable and open for the holy to emerge in new ways, and that you trust that God will show up. Um, just like in nature, you trust that nature knows how to fix itself, how to balance its ecosystems. There's like this trust in the natural rhythms of the world. In a similar way, I think you have to trust that God will bring people together. That it doesn't necessarily need this always, controlling or going back to like rewilding, letting a space sit fallow for a while so that nature can re-establish itself in a natural balance instead of always being farmed and controlled. Or and if you look at that, take that kind of metaphor to what we do with the church sometimes is that we over farm the holy and the land. Like we're trying to make it have clear expectations and outcomes and fall within, these like have certain numbers of people attend church, be relevant to this culture and this time, all these things that we're feeling like we need to meet these things. And I feel like the Christian church is just entering a space where it needs to lie fallow for a while, maybe. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. A lot of people where I'm at in the divinity school, I think, are fighting against that and, from a good, heartfelt place. But I don't know. I feel like it just needs to lay for a while. Let's get a generation in between that has not been overly, I don't know, controlled by it or formed by rigid religion. Anyways, more I could say there, but I'll stop.
No, I think all the things that are really important, and I do sort of wonder how the American church, and maybe specifically what it will take to recover from the and what it will take the world to recover from Christian nationalism and the church's role in perpetuating harm in so many different directions against the spirit.
Colonialism
Yeah,
and
spirits and bodies of women and people of color and gay people and all the rest, right? So I love the idea of the fallow, of letting things be fallow and trusting in the rewilding, that there's again, we're not creating it, and so I'm gonna be sitting with from our conversation, the idea of, like, sort of a corrective against idolatry, which, is
mhm.
in all the traditions, right? There's a deep awareness of idolatry
I
and its
know.
various, seductions and dangers,
Mm.
and, literally, we're in an era where our president, like, is creating, like, gold things. Like, right, like, so we're seeing, that there's almost no sense of irony or no sense of self-awareness really, that idolatry is just all over the freaking place in a lot of different ways. And I really will be sitting Faith with this idea of softness and pliability, and that energy to me feels right for this moment, or at least right for a lot of people in
Yeah.
this moment.
I
Yeah.
I like where you're bringing us, like, into focus here, but I just have to make a note with, like, my evangelical brain is going, "Yes, but you're making nature an idol,"
Yeah.
or "You're
Right.
making, yourself an idol because you're trusting yourself over God." And I just have to clarify here that we need to look at who and what is God.
Yeah.
And let's think long and hard about that.
Right.
And let's think long and hard about what love is and not just go off of our automatic programming from what we've learned in Sunday school or churches. Let's think long and deep about that. And then let's consider where we are. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I can hear that voice coming up. That's what people would say and be concerned with. And that would just be my answer back. So,
Thank you, Faith. Thank you for lifting up the the voices that still live in us, even after we, or as we sort of migrate or evolve or move away from, the ideas and the ideologies that we're raised with. And I think that's such a, again, I feel like so much of this episode has been one of the topics is just like the gentle or not gentle recovery from, in particular, I think some traumatic religious experiences and environments. And maybe how some glimpses of how we collectively recover from what is happening, or how we move through these times with a deeper and more grounded sense of actually having our feet firmly planted on the ground and not feeling alone, not feeling abandoned, but feeling like we're part of a, well, something's happening, let's pray it's
mhm.
evolution, it's going somewhere good. Um, so as you all can tell, dear listeners, this is a dot, dot, dot. Faith and I are looking forward to having, maybe you should do this more often, Faith. I mean, it's really fun to talk to you in this way. And so anyway, listeners, if you like this format, please comment. Um, and I thought, or Faith thought, I didn't think this. Faith thought that maybe it'd be nice.
What did I
But
think?
you did think, you have a lot of good thoughts. That maybe we could end we could end with some meditation.
Yes.
And I think nothing's, formal. Like, I'm not going to do anything sort of like, this is the loving kindness meditation, which I've used in the past. I use every week for the meditation that I lead at the college where I work. But I'm thinking in this instance, just doing some grounding practices. And so maybe we could all do them together. So,
That'd be great.
listeners,
Thank you for preparing it.
yeah. Oh gosh. Well, I it's really helpful. I mean, I just find all this stuff really helpful. So, dear listeners, if you're not driving a car or you don't need to have your eyes open, you're welcome to close your eyes. But if you need to keep them open, you can. And if you are sitting or standing, you might feel your feet on the floor or the ground, and then feel your other parts of your body connected to a chair or a bed or wherever you happen to be. Gravity is holding us. And if it feels right to, take some intentional breaths and to let breath fill some places in your body that might feel tense or tight. For a lot of us, it's shoulders, neck, hips, back. Even our calves can feel tight sometimes. So just noticing what's feeling tense or tight. And sending some breath to those tense and tight places. And inspired by our conversation, just let it come into your awareness if there's a place within you that wants to soften, that wants to become more porous, a way in which you're feeling the wild holy asking you to trust or soften. Could be a relationship, could be situation in your personal, professional life. You might ask the wild holy to help you to create more space for that within you. And send some breath, some of your breath and your attention to that place of trust within you. That's real. Might be wild. It's real. And to gently move a little bit. Wiggle your toes or crack your knuckles. Move your neck. So that's the wild holy for today. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Stephanie. Goodbye, listeners.
See you next